You're listening to Two Guys Talking Wine with Michael Pinkus and Andre Prue.
Michael.
Andre. We're at a very strange place.
Yeah, we are in a strange place.
Yeah, we're on the road for the first time in a long time.
I know, and
like legitimately on the road. Like not one of us on the road, but
it's amazing that they're trusting us in the place that we're at, because we could literally cause an international incident here.
We can. And we've been warned that we could.
But if we do it, we're not going to be going to Canadian jail.
No, we end up in a British jail cell, so isn't that interesting?
We're at the house of the British consulate in Rosedale, Toronto.
Yeah. So, and we are being joined by, well, you know what? I think we should let them introduce themselves and tell us why they are here.
Go ahead,
so
Fergus.
We'll start over here.
I'm Fergus Elias. I'm the head winemaker and director of wine at Balfour Winery, which is an English wine producer down in the southeast. I've grown up in English wine, so this is very exciting.
I'm James. I'm the export manager for Chapel Down, so we're also a Kent producer, not too far from our friends at Balfour. We're one of the largest producers in the UK, so it's fantastic to be entering the Canadian market. And we're in great company, which is great. The category is always stronger together.
God, you're very diplomatic.
Well, we're in a diplomatic residence, so.
Yeah, hi. I'm Mark Culver from Domaine Evremond, which is a joint venture between Champagne Taittinger and Hatch Mansfield, a distributor in the UK, in Kent as well. And first champagne house to get involved with planting vines, building a winery. And actually going the whole sort of 9 yards.
I suppose that leaves me to represent the West Country. So I'm Callum from Langham Wine Estate. We're out in Dorset, all the way over in the southwest, the home of Scrumpy cider and whatever else it is. We're very good at making out there. And we also make sparkling wine from the Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier.
Wait, what's Scrumpy cider?
Oh dear.
Oh, Scrumpy cider is like it's like a cloudy cider, isn't it?
Yeah, proper. Firewater, yeah.
Okay,
it's
my
not what we make. I should clarify.
My bud's from Normandy, so like I'm all about cloudy, cloudy cider. So
of that style,
but we're not here to talk about cider.
No,
we're
here to talk about sparkling wine, because that is what England, I guess, is being known for.
Yeah, I don't. You and I have kind of dropped the ball a bit, because British bubbles have been bubbling below the surface for like years.
I don't know how we can say we dropped the ball. I think the LCBO has dropped the ball, because I don't think they've brought in this much English bubbles ever.
The good news for you guys is I don't think the LCBO listens to this podcast, so that nervous giggling. Anyways,
so I guess we're going to have 4 bottles at the table. So we're going to be tasting my first uncorked bottle of English bubbles.
See, now I'm feeling guilty, because I've bought them out of curiosity. Like I'm really excited to meet Fergus, because I've gone through like a good half dozen bottles of Balfour, because it's the only one.
You bastard!
But I didn't think you would
very
care.
Much. I'm very grateful for those sales. That's really helpful. Right
but that's it, though. It's one of the first ones I've seen at the LCBO, and having heard about them, like there was a curiosity. But
I went to Derek Barnett's house. He had bought 2 bottles, drank one, said it was delicious. Opened the second bottle, it was corked. So I didn't even get a chance to taste it. I got a chance to see the bottle.
Well, okay, we're going to ask you guys a bunch of questions just to get some background, because as you can tell, like, we really are in carte blanche. Like, we don't know a lot about English wines at all, period, full stop. We should maybe get a bottle open and get something in the glass so we can talk while we're chatting. But
and then I guess anybody jump in with answers. But first of all, is bubbles pretty much all you guys are making?
I would say... fighting over answering this one. As a category, we're 75% sparkling to 25% still wine. So sparkling dominates, but there is some outstanding still wines not to be overlooked in the market as well.
And I think you're seeing that percentage grow as well. And we certainly are. We reflected the market almost exactly. We were for 15 years in that we were 75% sparkling, 25% still. But the last sort of 3-5 years, we've moved.
Scared the whole room.
We've moved across, and we're now approaching something around about 55% sparkling, 45% still.
And what are the grapes you're working with?
Primarily, we're talking Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. That's the main driver here.
Even what you're making still with?
Yeah, still wines, they're dominated by those. There is also a Germanic variety called Bacchus, which apparently is England's answer to Sauvignon Blanc.
I like the name of that grape.
Yeah, you know what?
Strong name.
It's
It's
strong,
not very
strong
good.
name.
I've had some Bacchus before, and I would not recommend it.
It turns out that Sauvignon Blanc is actually England's answer to Sauvignon Blanc. We should really plant more of that. But I mean, Bacchus well made is very interesting.
There are some great examples of Bacchus out there, so don't give up on it.
I make a lot.
Just to roll it back just a little bit, and any one of you could take the answer to this question because, like I said, like full background, like Ontario's modern wine industry started in 1973, 1977. Oh God, this is so back. 1973.
We just celebrated 50 years with Enniskillen.
There we go. So 1973, when our first vinifera vines were planted, we know it was in Enniskillen. Everything in this country is regulated by the government, so we know it's the first Prohibition-era winery. Where did things start in England? Like, who decided, hey, you know what? Chardonnay...
Well, in fact, it was the Romans.
The Romans?
There were vineyards planted in Roman times in England, and then they went
They
out.
didn't work very
They
well.
did not work well.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
But that's when it
We don't need
started.
to know about the ones that didn't work. Obviously, some of them
You
are
asked the
working.
question.
I know,
That's
and I
the
think it's good
answer.
because we apparently had a wine industry before Prohibition as well, and then for 10 years we decided alcohol was evil, and then it really messed things up here, and frankly we're still dealing with the consequences of that. But when did the modern wine industry start?
I think
in England?
if you look at the current era of wine that we're looking at in the UK, you've got to go back to the 1960s, 1970s. Climate was clearly far cooler back then than it is now, and a lot of us were bottling acid and trying to sell it to people, which wasn't a particularly positive way of doing things, but it's come a long way since those early days, pioneering days, and thankfully there were some forward-thinking people that got vines in the ground at the right time.
I like that you say bottling acid, which sounds, almost illegal. So, Andre and I have, we've started with a glass of Balfour.
Yeah, Balfour. So this is our 1503 Classic Cuvée, available now in the LCBO at a very reasonable price, and bottled and disgorged under
Are
a
you suggesting our wines aren't reasonably priced, Fergus?
Not at all. I wouldn't dream of saying that. Disgorged and under a Mitic cork, so a Diam cork, so no 0% chance of corking on this particular wine.
The Rolls Royce of the cork world, we like to
The
say.
only cork I'd ever use when it comes to sparkling wine. So this is designed to be a very approachable. This is our entry-level sparkling wine. This is, it's $55, something like that, which it's a very reasonable price point. It's got 18 months on lees now. It's Chardonnay, Pinot Noir. It's Pinot dominant, so it's around about 60% Pinot Noir, then a bit of Pinot Meunier and a bit of Chardonnay in there as well. Dosage is set at about 10 grams. It does move. It fluctuates because it should. Wine is not a straight line. It moves and you change with it. But I love this.
Wine is not an essay.
Now, the acids must be screaming when you pull them from the vineyard because you could barely taste the dosage. It's so well balanced. Like, this tastes far drier than I would have guessed.
Yeah, well, the acid on that's about 9.5.
Okay.
Now,
Finished product.
Now I'm an acid head when it comes to sparkling wine. This is hitting all the right notes for me.
No, wine is about balance, right? You want to make something that reflects the fruit, and at the same time you want something that people are going to want to drink, and you want them to come back and have another glass and preferably buy a bottle. That's sort of what we're going for. And I mean, I've been at Balfour for a long time, and we've worked on this style for a long time and it's now a genuine perpetual cuvée. Like, we've been not quite in the style of a Langham perpetual cuvée where they've got their own thing and they've given it a fancy name. But I mean, this is vintages 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. No, it won't be 24 yet. But there's 7 vintages of base wine that gets blended every year, back blended. Which is great. We're actually building consistency. We've actually got...
And Balfour starts in what year? What's the establishment?
2002, where the first vines went in. And so our first vintage was actually 2004.
This is a lovely bottle.
And I think my last bottle of Balfour was maybe 5 years ago. It was pre-pandemic the last time I was able to get my hands on it. And, it was good then, but it's better now. Like, it's just got this depth at $55. The challenge that you guys are going to be facing entering the market here is at $55 and up. You're not competing against each other for market space. You're competing against the French. So your quality's got to be up there. Can we talk a bit about quality? And obviously, you guys are hyper aware of what market you're trying to dip into. What are you doing to make sure that you're competing against the French?
That's quite an interesting question because we're actually owned by the French at Domaine Evremont.
Okay.
So Champagne Taittinger own the business. We're very fortunate that we're 2.5 hours by car from Champagne, and the Taittinger viticulturist looks after all the vineyards, and the Taittinger chef de cave looks after the winemaking. So they don't see it that you're trying to sort of nick share from there. What they're saying is, around the world, there's great sparkling wine made in lots of different regions, and it's giving people choice. So you're actually not trying to nick business from any particular category. And we're a tiny category. There's 6.2 million bottles of English sparkling wine made. There's 300 million bottles of champagne made. So it's about qualitative distribution in the right. So you go around the LCBO stores like I did yesterday, and it's in the right stores, in the right demographics. So the 4 wines sit there. They're all next to each other, and they're going to talk a category story because they're at different price points, which is right. They should talk a category story to the consumer here. 1 million people go from here on holiday to the UK every year. That's like 3% of your population. I'm saying they're affluent. They will see the English sparkling wine sector in the UK, and they will come home. And now they'll be able to actually say, "Oh yeah, I went to that vineyard, or I saw that wine over in the UK. I'm going to buy it."
You know, it's really interesting. I have a very good friend of mine who's English but raised in Canada, goes home to visit her mum for a few weeks every year. And this past trip, I asked her, if you can you grab me a bottle of English sparkling wine? And she was just like, "What? They make wine? We make wine here?" And she ended up grabbing me a bottle of Pommery made there. So the French are generally interested in what you guys are doing.
Well, they've got, France, the sparkling wine industry has got a challenge. This year was the earliest harvest on record in Champagne. I think it was about the 21st of August. It used to be end of September. So we're in the warm year era of Champagne, and the UK is now sitting where Champagne would have done 30 years ago climatically. So
it's only going to get harder as well.
Yeah.
They've got a really fundamental choice to make in Champagne, which this isn't to be dismissive, because I think for all of us, it's kind of where our original inspiration has come from. But they have got a choice now between either picking bullets and having acid, or picking kind of incredibly overripe but ending up with finished wines at 13-14% alcohol, which just don't fit with anyone's vision of the style. We're in a lucky position in the UK, particularly being a maritime climate, where that's not going to be too much of a problem for a while, and we're in this perfect spot of having much greater phenolic ripeness, so much more flavour ripeness in the fruit at the right time when we hit, sort of 10-11% natural alcohol. By the time you turn that into a sparkling wine, you're going to be around 12.5. You end up with this really well-balanced but flavourful sparkling wine, which I think I was thinking about it on the flight over yesterday. Some of the more present English wines, particularly on the domestic market, I'd actually rather drink most of those now than I would most. I've got to be careful saying this next to you. In most cases,
don't be mean about our French overlords.
In most cases, I think I'd rather drink the best English producers now than the best of the Grand Marques in Champagne. I think we are making just as good, if not better, and more a champenois style than they'll be able to do. For the next
and
few
awards
years.
have proven that too.
Yeah.
So that's the first I had ever heard of English Bubbles, was that you guys had won best champagne or sparkling wine in the world, and you had beaten the French.
Yeah,
You had actually.
But before we beat up on the French too much,
I'm not beating up on the French.
I just wanted to say we can continue beating up on the French in a minute. It's fine. I'm okay with that. What do we have in our glass right now is the Domaine Evremont Classic Cuvée Sparkling. Oh, there's nothing in your glass, and it's your Mark
Fergus.
Well, we figured you drank enough of that stuff. You obviously didn't need any more.
Never seen it before.
So $99.95. I don't mind saying this because we aren't paid by Taittinger, but we did open up a bottle of Taittinger Rosé yesterday as part of our Toronto Life tasting, or 2 days ago, and it didn't cut the mustard.
No, it felt a little flabby.
And this one is only $10 more a bottle, and I think you're getting a lot of wine for $99.
I'm getting a lot of the wonderful biscuitiness, toastiness from this wine.
So this is 36 to 42 months on these. Base
Really
vintage,
heavy on Pinot Noir, nice and
55
broad.
Pinot. That will change over time. I think what we've seen when we planted the vineyards, we were nervous about the Chardonnay. But actually, having learnt what's happened since 2019, Chardonnay is going to play a much bigger role. Some new plantings that we've got, all Chardonnay.
I'm happy to hear that.
I know you're happy to hear
So
that.
I think over time this will move. I mean, we launched with a non-vintage, and which is not the easiest thing in the world to do. It's much easier to launch with vintage because you get cash in earlier. But we launched with a non-vintage. Why? Because we're trying to work out what the house style will be, a bit in the champagne world type. You need to have your house signature wine, and then down the track we'll do a Blanc de Blanc or a vintage or whatever.
This does remind me of champagne.
It does, but it's not what Taittinger tastes like.
No,
Like
it's
this is bigger, broader on the back palate. This has an immense cellarability. Like this is the sort of thing where I might pick up a couple bottles and forget about one for 10 years just to see how it'll evolve in the cellar.
Yeah, and what we've seen initially, I mean, we are really fortunate, right? The English sparkling wine industry has found it quite hard to get out on the global stage. We are really lucky. We've got 107 markets that Taittinger export to. We're already in 20.
Tough gig.
After 8 months. So I don't underestimate the advantages that the Taittinger partnership delivers, but I don't want to be there just to sell this. I want to be there to be part of an English sparkling wine on the global stage. I'm old enough. One of the benefits of getting old is that you can remember stuff from way back.
Forget other things.
I sold lots of other things. I sold the first bottles of New Zealand wine in the UK wine market in 1985. Now New Zealand's a huge category. Why? Because the families worked together in the early days to create a category in the UK market.
Well, I can even see there's a dynamic on this table. That there's a bit of a camaraderie.
Well, I'm the grandfather of this.
No, but it's nice.
Literally, it's literally the grandfather.
Not yours.
Not mine. But these gentlemen.
But it is nice to see that there's a bit of a camaraderie in the attitude that you're saying. And then I think the most important thing that we've heard from both of you, from Mark and from Fergus, is that you're trying to develop an English style to go with the houses, because it is one of the problems we're facing in Ontario. And Michael, I'm going to get to a question here, so don't cut me off.
Oh, I'm just waiting.
I just want to set the stage for you guys. Is we have a very good industry here in Ontario, but Toronto has been a tough market for us because reputationally we started off at the beginning. Our summers are wildly varied here. In a hot summer we can ripen Cabernet Sauvignon, but that only happens 2 years out of 10. And the domestic market does not love Canadian wine the way they should. So the question I have is, what's your domestic market like? I know you guys are working on export, but do English people love English wine yet?
I mean, there's nothing an English person likes more than denigrating themselves and making themselves feel stupid. It's English wine, and selling it to the English is always tricky. I mean, this has been my life. My dad's a winemaker. I've grown up in English wine, and I've watched it, and it has changed. But it's taken 30 years for us to really genuinely be able to walk around in the domestic market and feel comfortable, and that people aren't going to be like, oh, English wine, battery acid, or make jokes along those lines. It's genuinely taken that long. It's I don't know what it is. It's that sort of very English thing where we don't want to be proud and we don't want to sound like we're excited by something, but we should be really proud. And there are some really exciting producers.
I see now where Canadians get it from. It's inherited from long ago.
It's
the British being here, 'cause we're very much the same. We produce some great sparkling, we produce some great table wines, and yet nobody really wants to drink them because they're not on the global stage, and everybody's not going woohoo Canadian
it's
wine.
the cosmopolitan nature of Toronto, because it is a landing point for immigration. It's just something has to be cool elsewhere before we embrace it. But this isn't about us. This is about you guys.
This is about them. So thank you very much. That what was the second one we had?
That was the Domaine Entremont. That was the Taittinger partnership. Although it's still weird how you guys say the names of the champagne, which I know is correct because you guys have the history. It's correct where you're from.
We apologise.
You say it whatever way you want.
I know, as long as we're drinking it, right?
As long as you're buying it.
Yeah. So what we have in our glass now is the Chapel Down Kit's Cody Blanc de Blanc 2019. Tell us a little bit about this wine that's in our glass right now.
The cricket ball is now in your court.
Excellent. on my wicket. Yeah, there we go. So we've got the Kit's Cody Blanc de Blanc 2019, which is one of our top wines. So we've got a really interesting range that's launched into the LCBO across different sort of segments of the English sparkling category. Straight to the top for Chapel Down. We're one of the largest producers in the UK, so we're making sort of 2.5 million bottles of wine per year. Of this wine, it's a drop in the ocean, so it's a really special wine to have. And I think really to talk about it, we've got to start with the vineyard site that we have. So Kit's Cody is a place in Kent on the North Downs, so we have this fantastic vein of chalk that runs from the south of London all the way down through Kent to Dover. Hopefully you guys might have seen the White Cliffs of Dover as an image, right? So that doesn't stop there. It continues under the English Channel and crops up in France, in Champagne. So we're accessing that very same bit of terroir as Domaine Evremond are in Kent as well. And this was the first site that we actually bought and planted on the North Downs, and it's really a catalyst for everything else that we do. So we've planted 40 different vine, clone and rootstock combinations to really understand what works best in that area. And it's a really perfect site for us. So perfect aspect, perfect altitude, ancient tree line coverage. In the middle of the vineyard, you've got 4 collapsed stones, so it's actually a Neolithic historical area as well. So there's lots of angles to talk about this, but what we're seeing really is a microclimate that's exceptional for ripening Chardonnay, and people thousands of years ago noticed that things grew better there from an arable crop perspective. So the site is planted with Chardonnay, bit of Pinot Noir, bit of Bacchus that we touched on earlier, but it is Chardonnay dominant, and the Blanc de Blanc is made from a couple of very premium Champagne clones, one of which is 121. The viticulture at this site is a lot more intensive, so we know it's a great site, but we want to improve it even further, so we restrict the yield to boost the quality even further. We will wild ferment all of our wines from this site, right? So it's a longer process, but you're getting a much more complex finished product out at the end. And 29% of this will be fermented in barrel pre-second fermentation in bottle, so you get that coming through. It's really, I think, really well balanced. And then it's 4.5 years on lees before we get to this point where we're putting it in the glass, and you've got a 7.5 gram dosage on there as well. So looking at a really toasty, rich, balanced product that's really showcasing the quality of the fruit from our best vineyard, which is Kit's Cody.
Do you want to guess on price, or do you want me to just say the price, Mike?
You can say the price. Go ahead.
This is $119.95.
So this is I think from, if my memory serves, and geez, it's only been half an hour since we started. This is the longest on lees that we've had for any of the wines. It started at 18. Yeah. You said 3 years, 36, and then now you're at 4.5.
Correct. Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely a richness. We've moved up the richness scale to it. I'm getting a little bit of an oxidized characteristic to it, which of course you're supposed to get from the barrel.
But very nice that the barrel's not driving the bus. There's still a lot of fruit under it. Moving more into orchard fruit, less citrus, a little bit more like bruised pear, bruised peach.
Stylistically, we're always fairly fruit forward and quite generous with our styles. So exactly what you're seeing. And I think, referring back to your question earlier, how do we ensure value against champagne, or how do we compete? So I think, $120 for a single estate Blanc de Blanc from a really exceptional vineyard in the UK. When you look at what you'd need to get from champagne as an equivalent product, it's going to be above that price.
And
point,
I believe that was vintage dated too.
Yeah,
it was
2019.
2019.
Yeah,
See, the cool thing for me, like thinking about the flavor profile of this wine, is this is something I would recommend to someone who maybe loves Bali, because it's right in the same price range too, but it's not a clone. It's not trying to be Bollinger. It's trying to be its own thing. But
if you also think of, you referenced the Toronto Life Tasting, we did a Veuve Clicquot Grand Dame, which was $250.
Yeah.
So if you're looking,
we
for
get two of these.
Yeah. So just for this,
I think your point is right. You said it then. These aren't trying to say we're like that.
Yeah.
They're trying to say we are from this place and taste like this. We're trying to make a balanced wine.
Yeah, we're
from
looking at
this
another
place,
region,
and it's another sparkling wine
better
region.
than Ontario.
If you look at Tattinger, have got a place in Conneros, just on the north side of San Francisco Bay.
Yeah,
it makes wine of that place, sparkling wine. Tasmania makes sparkling wine of Tasmania. There are sparkling wines around the world, and these should reflect the sense of place, which is what yours is doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I find that very interesting. The three wines we had, there's three completely different versions of sparkling wine, and yet all have a sense of place. All have that sense of really great acidity. Have a sense of. But I don't know if I would suddenly on a blind tasting going, oh, that's definitely England.
Give us time.
Yes, but yes, I mean, so you Andre had asked when does the modern English winemaking start, and so I know you said Roman times, but let's move up from the Roman times, because we obviously realized that did not work.
I mean, I don't know whether you probably do have this in your your background, but back in the 70s there were things like Three Quires making the English wine scene got going with still wine originally, with German grape varieties, and Three Quires was a big player, really big player in sort of Herefordshire, and then I guess over time people realised that still wine wasn't necessarily at that time the way forward, because it was too cold. And you go back to the very high acid era.
Yeah, I mean, you had sort of New Hall over in Essex, and you had Three Quires, and you had Hambledon, of course. He was the general. The major was messing around in the 1950s. That was the first sort of commercial one of the modern era. But I mean, if we're all honest, and we should be, that traditional method English sparkling wine starts with Nightingale in the 90s. In the early 90s, they were the first brand to plant Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, and the first brand to make traditional method sparkling wine, closely followed by Chapel Down, actually, because that was my father. So Nightingale are that sort of leading light when it comes to. They were the first people to do English sparkling in the style that you're starting to taste here. I mean, I just briefly that Chapel Down that was so perfectly elegant and poised. It was almost as good as one of mine. I really loved that wine.
Josh should be pleased to hear that.
I'm sure he'll be delighted. No, but that was immaculate, which is something I love about Chapel Down, is that the wines are always
so
too kind.
The fourth wine that we have in our glass is from our Scrumpy friend over.
I've really set myself up for failure with that line.
It's a Langham Culver.
I should have prepared for this.
74.95. Big, broad. Another. Like, I think we did drink these in the right order, and I think we did that by accident.
But it's interesting that I've had some Scrumpy in my day, and it does have a Scrumpy characteristic to it.
I'll allow it. No, I think you'll go for that with the whole kind of West Country angle. So we're a lot further out west, where we get the brunt of the rain and
dragons.
Sorry?
The dragons.
And the dragons.
For the dragon.
We're not in Wales.
It's west.
It is west. It's much cooler, it's much wetter. Rainfall's not an issue, because we'd argue we're probably some of the best chalk in the country. We're on the very western edge of it, which means it's the youngest deposits, which are much more porous, crumbly chalk that's genuinely doing that job that chalk should do in a very similar way to the best parts of Champagne. And then cooler just means we get a slightly longer growing season. So ideally that means slightly higher phenolic ripeness, which I mentioned earlier, so that's slightly higher fruit ripeness by the time the sugars have reached their peak and by the time the acids are starting to fall a little bit. And then we just, whether it is that West Country angle or the way the fruit comes in, we try and take that and make as transparent and hands-off a style as we can. So we are very different to the other wines on the table, and actually most other producers in the UK. We're much more what you could call low intervention. We try not to use the word natural because it's become so loaded and it means too many things to too many people now.
I think that's the correct move.
Yeah, it's not the right word anymore, but in our principles we are low sulphur. We're very oxidative at the press. We can do low sulphur because the wines, we're in a marginal climate. We're coming in with fruit at 2.9 to 3.1 pH, with pretty high acids, so they are naturally protecting themselves. So we just don't need to use so much sulphur, and if we don't have to use it, we won't. Very oxidative at the press. So we're literally letting the juice go brown in the juice tray. It is a sacrifice. So compared to the other three wines we've got here, where they have that poise and that kind of chiseled quality that I think we come to expect from a lot of champagne style wines, we are sacrificing that in the interest of having a much more savoury, maybe more generous kind of profile on the palate, more sort of salinity, more dried fruit, nutty character. It means we won't have those big floral top notes, but we're happy to make that sacrifice. And then we just try and follow that through with the winemaking. So it's wild yeast fermentation on all the base wines, lots of oak, but old oak. We're not looking for vanilla and toast. We're looking for more oxygen to get into the wine and soften that acid. Full malolactic, so we're softening that malic acid into lactic, much creamier and milkier. And then giving the fermentation as long as we can on the base wine. Our focus is so focused on base wines, making the best possible wines. There's no other wine region in the world that would try and speed through fermentation as fast as possible to get it into the bottle. And I think that's what we sometimes see with some, I wouldn't actually say any of the producers here, thankfully. We're in good company.
Careful now.
I hate to be the contrarian in the group, but we do have this very different style. We're just trying to make something much more gastronomic and a fine wine before it's a sparkling wine, which means we don't feel the need to do too much on lees aging. So similar to Ferg's wine that he's shown, we're only 18 months lees aging on this wine Culver,
Yeah, I'm surprised.
which
Mark,
is...
I saw your eyebrows go up too, so the people can't hear eyebrows going up.
Without getting too... if you want the nerdy stuff, then, let's delve into it. But we do quite a lot of batonnage on the base wines in barrel, which is going to reincorporate the lees in at that stage. We feel like we're achieving a lot of that creaminess and depth at that stage, rather than relying on it happening in the bottle for second ferment. Ripeness of fruit, helps to deliver some of that character as well, and being oxidative brings in that nuttiness. If we get all of that winemaking right, what we're thinking about is texture and the feel of the wine on the palate. We're trying to build all of that kind of weight on the palate. So if we get that right, then we don't end up having to add so much sugar at the end in dosage. So this wine, I think, is 3 grams dosage. Wow. So everything we make now is extra brut, and actually that's 1.5 grams higher than anything we've currently got back at home. Just because if we get that right, we can make these very elegant, graceful, but savoury and complex wines without having to overcompensate at the end with the amount of dosage that we add. Culver's based on Pinot Noir, so we make 2 side-by-side classic cuvées. Corallian based on Chardonnay that's hopefully arriving in Canada fairly soon. And then Culver, this wine based on the Pinots, which is, of the 2, the much more generous, giving lots of dried apple, bruised apple, dried peach, cherry, marzipan. It's all of that kind of character.
The reason I made the scrumpy joke, I guess, at the beginning was because I got like tons and tons of apple,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
kind of the those apple ciders that you get that are not fully clear.
Yeah, the ones I drink.
Yeah, so and that's what I got out of that one. I was just a full on apple, great acidity, and as you said, great gastronomic. So
Yeah.
it was really, really lovely.
We're all, at the winery, we're all just a bit obsessed with food, to be completely honest about it.
Yeah,
We
did a
love-
quick Google. You guys have a kitchen at the...
Yeah,
at
it's a really nice cafe on site, but equally, even beyond that, they make some great food. But more to the point, we're all, any time that we're doing any sort of vineyard jobs, any winery jobs, inevitably we'll be talking about what we're having for dinner or what restaurant we want to go to next, and that's become so much a part of our culture in the winery. And we're trying to make these wines that pair well with food, rather than just having one glass before dinner and moving on to something else. We want you to open it and drink it all night.
Yeah, I do just love how the food culture scene in England has evolved quickly, because
Yeah.
one of my favorite movies is Snatch, Guy Ritchie, and you have the Dennis Farina quote, right? Bad food, bad weather, Mary fucking Poppins, England. And I think for a lot of people that's what the perception is. But
Yeah.
you have so many great chefs there
Yeah,
now
that's
in
the
the
thing.
It's just not
Some
the
of
case.
greatest chefs in the world have also come from England.
London, probably the best city in the world, probably now for food.
I'd say so.
And it's in a very diverse... So, no, I will say this, having been in Toronto for...
Toronto's not it.
No, for 12 hours.
Toronto's not it.
But I do
You're
see
just talking
some...
to a Francophile here, so...
No, even that, I see some parallels between Toronto and London in terms of that diversity of food culture.
Yeah.
Because
Diversity, yes.
Diversity,
Yeah.
100%.
This is kind of what it comes down to for London. We don't really have our own British food culture as such. We are magpies. We keep stealing stuff where we can, and
We've been doing it for 200 years. It's worked
we're
pretty
getting
well.
quite good at it. Yeah.
Some by force, some over.
Yeah, without going too far down that road.
Well, at least you guys are establishing your own identity. That's definitely a big problem with Canada. You can only have so many iterations of poutine before it's just really friggin' boring. And trust me, poutine is not something that we all love as much as people might think. It's just the only thing we can think of when you ask what's Canadian.
Look, it's mashed potatoes with French fries. That's basically what it is.
It's galling that you think you invented chips and gravy as well.
No, but we put the cheese on it.
Put the cheese on top, right? The French came along, they put some cheese
There's
on
something
top.
there's something magic about a Quebecois cheese curd. So
Yeah, fine.
So, gentlemen, this was fantastic. This was a wonderful trip down the English countryside, I guess, with wine. And
the bar's
and
been set.
The bar's been
fairly
set
high
for all of us. I have to be honest. If I'm going to pick one wine on the table that I would drink, being the Acid Head, for me it's the Balfour.
Thank you very much. Your check's in the post.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
My wallet says Balfour, but I'm sorry, my heart says Chapel Down.
That's
But
Checks
it's my
in the
style.
They've got a much bigger marketing budget than us.
Wise choice.
All right, so we will put in the show notes the links to the LCBO listings for all these wines, so you can get them at a shop near you. Definitely for the sparkling wine lover in your life or your champagne lover in your life, get them something, and these are definitely a great place to start. I'm Andre Prue, AndreWineReview.ca.
I'm Michael Pinkus of MichaelPinkusWineReview.com. And as always, well, I guess we're in the middle of the afternoon, but good night.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to Two Guys Talking Wine on iTunes.
Two Guys Talking Wine is produced by Adam Duran and Ken Little.